Welcome to The Red Story. If you like it, like and subscribe to the channel. It's very inspiring. My mother-in-law, Laura, has a total of 10 grandchildren. Unfortunately, my children, Emma, who is 7, and Lucas, who is 5, seem to be her least favorite. As long as the children were young and didn't understand the difference, it was somewhat tolerable. But now they notice the favoritism, and it hurts them deeply. Visiting Laura and my father-in-law, Jim, has become a painful ordeal for my children, especially when their cousins are around. I've finally decided that I can no longer allow this anxiety and heart attack in their lives, so I made the decision to ban my in-laws from seeing my children. Naturally, this has caused quite a stir in my husband's family. My husband, Matt, included, has called me in a hole for taking such a drastic step. The rest of the family has also chimed in, labeling me as arrogant and hateful. Some have even suggested that Laura's dislike for me is why I've never been her favorite. But here's where I draw the line. It doesn't matter if Laura likes me or not. Whether she thinks I'm arrogant or if she's the one being selfish and bitter, none of that should be taken out on the children. To illustrate this, I have a brother and sister. My brother-in-law, Dave, is an abusive jerk, and while I can't stand him, I still love my nieces and nephews because they are my family. They didn't choose their parents. In the same way, my children are Laura's grandchildren and Matt's children, regardless of who I am. Recently, Laura has been calling Matt every day, crying about how I've forbidden her from seeing her grandchildren. This is perplexing to me. Why does she care now when she has shown such blatant favoritism in the past? Is it because I finally stood up and said something? One of the primary reasons I decided to cut ties was that I didn't want my children to resent their cousins for being treated better. It's not the cousins' fault that the adults are behaving so poorly, and I don't want Emma and Lucas to harbor any ill feelings towards them. Matt argues that I have no right to make such a decision alone, stating that he has just as much say in who gets to see our children. I responded by telling him that if he insists on keeping his parents in our children's lives, we could divorce, and I would ensure that Laura never sees the kids again. I even have legal grounds to enforce this. What started all of this was one of my sisters-in-law, Rebecca, sending me chat logs where Laura was spewing hatred about my children, especially about Emma because she resembles me. It was shocking and painful to read, and I knew I had to act to protect my children. So, am I the a-hole? Can I really forbid my husband's family from seeing our children even if Matt believes there's a less dramatic solution? Laura claims she's willing to apologize and talk things through, saying she loves our children very much. But for me, that ship has sailed and sunk. My daughter doesn't want to see anyone from that side of the family. Well, OP, I don't think you're the a-hole at all. While I usually advise against ultimatums, when it comes to protecting your children, there's no question. Your husband should always prioritize his kids over his mom. If he's struggling to understand that, you're right to stand firm. You have written proof that Laura has been cruel and spiteful towards your children. Her apologies now seem insincere, a desperate attempt to save face after being exposed. OP, you're doing what's best for your kids, and your husband needs to realize that his loyalty should lie with his immediate family, his wife and children, not his parents. I hope he comes to his senses soon, or else he might lose everything that truly matters. What do you all think? What's your judgment? Let me know in the comment section below. Now let's see what the community has to say. Nobag 5221 says, as someone who grew up with a grandmother who was like this, don't bring kids around her. We do notice the favoritism, and we do resent our cousins who are favorites. The relationship can be damaged because of this adult's actions. I don't know if it merits divorce, but definitely low contact with them. I was about 7 or 8 when my grandmother told me I wasn't supposed to be born. I told my mother, and she let me choose to see her again. I didn't see her much until I was older. OP responds, see, that's what I'm talking about. I don't want my children to learn to resent at this early age. The cousins are innocent in this, but for a 7-year-old, it's hard to understand who's behind what's hurting them. They just know they're being hurt. Celtic Newsbooks asks, can you give some specific examples of how she hates your children? It seems if she hated them, she'd welcome you saying she doesn't ever have to see them again. Be aware that you will have no say in how much contact your in-laws have with the kids during your husband's visitation time, unless these chat logs include tangible threats. The courts will not restrict who your husband and the kids spend time with during his custody time. It sounds like you and your husband need some marriage counseling to get on the same page. Opie replies, you think that, wouldn't you? But she seems to enjoy the mistreatment. She loves showing obvious favoritism and seeing their reaction. She calls them fat, refers to my daughter as a giraffe, and conveniently forgets to buy them gifts when everyone else gets one. She even pushes them out of pictures with the other grandkids. 8 Marshmallows asks, so what has your husband done about this? Has he set any boundaries with his mom? Is he upset about what his mom said about his own daughter? Opie replies, he's not upset at all. He believes that since we weren't supposed to read these chats, people are free to express themselves privately, It's only bad if she says these things directly to our children. But our kids aren't dumb. They know how she feels about them. Opie also adds that their children are 7 and 5 years old and they live outside of the U.S. In their country, bullying and parental alienation are taken very seriously. There are no grandparents' rights, so Laura has no legal claim to see the children, not even supervised visitation. While Opie loves her husband, he chooses his parents over their family. She will have no choice but to pursue divorce or full custody. Opie provided some more examples, such as Laura sharing a picture of their youngest son lying on the grass with a pet's gravestone in the background, writing, "Here lies the youngest son of that asterisk, 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 like our dog. Doesn't he look good? Who just falls asleep in this heat?" She has also called the children smelly, disgusting, and fat, and has cruel nicknames for her daughter. The agreement Opie proposed is that they should never see his family again. When the children are old enough, they can decide for themselves if they want to reconnect. The children already hate visiting their grandparents, so the focus should be on protecting their relationship with their cousins. It seems that the community agrees. Opie is not the whole, and her husband needs to make a decision quickly. Now let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. Hi everyone, I wanted to give you an update on the situation. In the end, I got what I wanted. My husband, Matt, was reluctant at first to hear me or the children out. I told him, what's the point of having a family if you already have one? What's the point of raising our children to have autonomy if we don't listen when they say no? Of course, he called me dramatic. Anyway, we invited his older brother, John, and his wife, Sarah, for dinner. Matt has 2 brothers and 1 sister, and he's the 3rd child. During dinner, John brought up the issue, and I was very honest about what I wanted and what the children wanted. John laughed it off, saying I've always despised their mother and was overreacting. Matt nodded in agreement. So I asked John if he had read the chats between his wife, Sarah, their sister, Emily, Laura, and Rebecca, the sister-in-law who told me about all of this. At first he denied it, then admitted he had. I asked him what he would do if his mother or mother-in-law wrote these things about his children, and he said she would never dream of seeing them again, not even if hell froze over. So I asked, then why my children? He looked at me, then at Matt, and casually said, because I'm a real man, but your husband has always been a kitty cat. I don't talk in such terms, just retelling what he said. Matt was silent the whole time. I then said, well, I don't have balls, but your mother will never see my children again, not even if hell freezes over. So tell that to your brother or anyone else for that matter. Later, Matt took our daughter Emma out for their usual dinner and movie tradition. They probably talked about her grandparents because when they got back, Matt told me she doesn't want to see them anymore. She told him that Laura and Jim don't like her, and it makes her sad. She also said she already has grandparents, my parents, and that's enough for her. When they got home, Matt told me we don't need to visit his parents anymore. We won't accept any gifts from them, and he will visit them alone if he wants to. I thanked him. I've received many comments and DMs from people who experience similar situations as children. They are still grateful that their parents protected them. This reinforced my decision, and I'm thankful for everyone who shared their perspective. Matt and I have also discussed couples counseling, and we'll take it from there. He's aware that we have problems, but both of us are willing to work together to solve them before considering any drastic steps.